Hello? Anybody there?
Hello, hello, hello.
How are you, sir? Are you doing okay?
I'm not bad. It's Jonks McCartney and Barry and Lennon.
Oh man, did you have that one written down?
I did not. I did think about it about like 6 hours ago, though, and I was like, remember that. It could be important.
I love it. I love it. It's so good, man. How was your day?
It was a good day. Yeah, I
Did
mean,
you have to use your AK?
I did not, which means it is a good day by default. I think that's the
That's
criteria.
that's the criteria. If you didn't have to use your AK, and that's a good day.
I didn't see any helicopters looking for a murder neither. So,
Well, I'm sure the crime scene's very different in your neck of the woods than it is over here in Southern California.
yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I think there's a reason there's not a maybe an ice cube of the provincial town that I live in now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, when we get down to the bottom, we get right back to the top,
Yeah,
right? So I guess we're gonna do this again, man. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna do the Beatles White Album Disc 2, and I can't wait.
yeah. It took me a second actually to get that Helter Skelter reference. I need to get tune in, get on board.
Yeah, yeah,
Tell
yeah,
you.
yeah. That was a Helter Skelter reference, by the way. That
Yeah,
absolutely was.
yeah.
Do,
I
do we
mean,
want
I
to
was sorry.
go ahead?
I was just going to say, honestly, I mean, today, given that disc one is complete, I just kind of focused on disc two, and I think it's the superior disc.
Yeah, I just finished up my listen through like number 3 today, and that's something that I do, man. I'll go over and over and listen to it, and it is such a better side of the album, man. It's
It
it's it's
is.
so much better. It's so much better. I think it's got better, just better songs on there, better songwriting, and we get a redemption. We get a redemption from not only do we get a redemption from George Harrison, but multiple redemptions from George Harrison, and we get a redemption from Ringo Starr. We get like not, we get a better Ringo track on disc 2, and it's beautiful. It's such a it pays off.
Yeah. I mean, do you think a part of that's because there's four less tracks? It is the shorter disc, so maybe in some ways it has less to, I mean, there's less room for, the silliness or
Yeah, I think so. There it is less tracks, right? And there's also like a track on there that's really, some could argue, not really even a track, right? I wouldn't call it junk, but it is definitely an experimental, like avant-garde track.
yeah, we'll have to get into that one specifically. And I think that's one of the kind of the almost the most infamous like weird Beatles song, I'd say. I mean,
Yeah,
Yellow Submarine was weird, but it was weird in a, it's still weird in a way that has some palatableness to it. Whereas, like, this track in particular is it's just notoriously strange. I think the idea, it's almost like they were like, why not was the idea they had going into it. They were just like, yeah, why not? What about this? Yeah, why not? Throw that on as well.
I think that was just their whole attitude for the whole album. It's a big old why not, you know? Like they could, I mean, give it, like, look at it, and they just come back from India, a little jaded too from being in India, dealing with the Maharishi, and I think they had some really good stuff that they came back with. They could do really no wrong because the the consensus was that like people were losing kind of faith in the Beatles, and like I said, they were on that hiatus for a year. So I mean, at that point, like they could care less, man. They were like, whatever, we're just gonna do what we want, and that's what they did, man. They went in that studio, and that's why you have a track like that one that we're probably referencing the same one, which is cool. I got some really cool ideas about that track.
Yeah, me too. I mean, there's something I heard on it which I'd like to try and confirm with you, but I have a feeling it's not true. I mean, I'm sure I could have just Googled it, but it made me laugh thinking about whether or not it was true. But I'll save that. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. The thing is, there's so much to this album that even if you split it into two albums, I think there'd be two very strong albums. Because if you look at disc one, I mean, whilst, yeah, sure, the quality does vary quite wildly, there is
Mhm.
still some incredible songs on it. You'd almost say to someone, oh, if there's a double album, but the first side has While My Guitar Gently Weeps, Happiness is a Warm Gun, Martha, My Dear, Blackbird, and Julia and Glass Onion and Dear Prudence and Back in the USSR on it, you go like, surely the second disc is probably not as good then. That must be the filler disc. And it's really not. The second disc is the higher quality disc.
Yeah, yeah. And that's that's mixing, right? Like that's mixing an album and putting the order that you set by the artist, and they did a good job with it. I mean, maybe yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just so ingrained in my head. It just goes in order that way, and I mean, it does flow. And but man, every song on this the second disc is just so. Oh man, it goes hard. It goes hard, man.
It really does. Do you think maybe to a certain extent they get the kind of like stupid rubbish songs out of the way early when you've got like a little bit more patience? So they, I mean, Wild Honey Pie and Bungalow Bills, 5 and 6. So at that point, you're like almost more willing to forgive it. And so by the time you get to the second part, like I don't know, maybe your resentment's gone and you're ready for some real listening.
Yeah, and I think that side disc two offer. You know what it is? When I was thinking about it today, when I was listening to the album, I was like, "Oh, the cool kids listen to side two of the White Album."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I wonder if there was like saying that went around being like, "Oh, do you like the White Album?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm only really a disc two thing guy though." And people were like, "Oh, okay, oh wow, a real fan." Whereas, like, do you think they look down on like maybe the disc one fanboys or like super fans?
it's
They're
like
like, "Oh,
it's
oh, do you
like
like disc one? Oh, right, yeah." I don't think we have much more to say to each other.
it's like gatekeeping, but like just specifically for the White Album. Like it's like, hey, Tony, check it out. Chris likes the disc one on the White Album.
Yeah. Well, oh yeah. How's Piggies going for you, Tony?
What a nerd conversation
Yeah.
we're having, and I love every bit of it, man.
Well, it's that band. It's that band, and it's also it makes me think as well when going through the second disc and the quality that was in it. I was like, are there any other bands that can do this or that have done this? I mean, I was thinking about other legendary albums, and I think Pink Floyd have some, but like, are there any other bands that imagine Dark Side was like twice as long and the
You would,
second half was better? You'd be like, this is insane.
yeah. Dark Side has. I think Dark Side is such a monumental album, and it's a um, that album in itself seems like it's like camouflaged as a double album just because of the material and the content on there. There's tracks like check it out. On Dark Side, there's tracks that emulate like they're on a double album. Like they have stuff that's like, and they have two instrumentals on Dark Side. You have Any Color You Like, right? And then you have Great Gig in the Sky,
Yeah.
and those play off like they should be on a double album, right? And yeah, but I thought about this today when we were talking about double albums and iconic double albums. You know what I didn't include is Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion, Use Your Illusion
Oh,
one and
yeah.
two. That album was supposed to be a double album, but they separated it, and so but they released them on the same day, and so it's a weird concept, but yeah, it's a double album.
I think were they just trying to maximize sales there, do you think? Because I wonder, I'm imagining a double album cost isn't the same price as two albums.
Well, they
I
were
don't know.
charging like premium prices for
Yeah.
both. I mean, so this was like back in what 90 91 or 90 something like that.
Yeah.
Um, So we never look at it as a double album, but I was like, you know what? GNR's Use Your Illusion's a double album, man.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking up a little bit just about double albums, and he said that usually the reason is that they wanted to release a lot of music just on the same album, so they refused to cut, or maybe, I mean, it was a really good interview I watched a while ago with Rick Rubin, where he's basically talking about how kind of albums get made and why a certain amount of songs get put onto an album and why some don't. And he was saying basically when you get into that kind of writing like flow, like everything you end up, he was like, I always try and push bands to outlet everything they've got around this time period. And he was like, when it's gone, but you like keep pushing it until there's nothing left, and then you kind of sort through it all, and then it's over, and then you'll move on to the next writing progression. And he was saying it was very rare that, I mean, bands he would work with would have like tracks from earlier or from before that would kind of get bumped up into an album. He was like trying to like focus your feelings from now for this year, and everything from here will get chosen for this album, and then we'll start from fresh completely next time.
Yeah, yeah. I you talk like you talk about Rick Rubin, and I have so many like preconceived notions about Rick Rubin, and I have so many opinions on that guy, and I could never get my head around like what he exactly does, because I remember watching him produce the Chili Peppers on TV one time, where he was in the studio with the Chili Peppers doing Sugar Sex Magic, and I remember like he's just sitting on this chair like looking back at them, and he's like, can you try it this way? And I'm like, man, like, what are you doing, Rick? Like, what is your input, man? Like, sometimes I think he just sits there and looks cool, and like I don't know, man. Like, I feel like that's blasphemy for a
It
Rick
is a
Rubin
bit.
fan.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, for me, it's like I look at like all of the albums Rick Rubin's worked on, and I'm just like, how has he covered so many bases from, Beastie Boys to Slayer to Chili Peppers? Like he's been around, and every single almost like there's a strong hit percentage with those albums that he did work on. It used to be like a running joke in a band that I'm in, that like someone's got to be the Rick Rubin for the session, and you sit in the Rick Rubin chair, and you got to do things that Rick Rubin would do, which means just being a bit ballsy and being like, do it again, that's not good, or like,
You
have
know,
you got could you try that but like better?
could you do that solo again, but just like not suck this time?
Yeah. One of the funny he started releasing these interviews he did with the different Chili Peppers members as they're coming back together, and yeah, like there's a really good one with Chad Smith, because Chad Smith's just such an awesome guy. And yeah, one of the funny stories was like Chad Smith is like, every time I try and do a fill, just Rick just tells me to cut it all out. And he goes, maybe that's for the live performance. And he's like, yeah, just like none of my fills ever made it to like half of the tracks, because Rick
but
would just be like, yeah, could you just go, and that's it. That's it. That's all you need.
But that's kind of the plight of the drummer, is it not? You know, every drummer wants to have so many fills.
Yeah.
Um, that's just my thing. But hey, you kind of have a look like Rick Rubin, don't you? With your beard, you
I've
kind of
heard that a
have that.
lot. The young Rick
Yeah,
Rubin. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I'm happy with the comparison. I've got a lot of respect for him. Also, like you, I don't really know what he does, but it's clear that he really likes music, and people seem to respect him. So on that basis, it's one of the more favorable visual comparisons people have made about my appearance. So I'll take it.
Well, again, when we get down to the bottom, we get back up to the top,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
do we have any? I don't know if you want to read anything there. It's up to you, man. This is your thing. I'm here to talk Beatles.
Yeah, no, I can tell. Yeah. Um, and I'm here for it. We've got like Fabrion says they like side C and D the most, and they're asking for where part one of this is. Part one is will be on this page, and it's just below this one. I might even sticky them. I feel like this is we're making history in kind of the way the Beatles made history right now. And
Well,
the Toby
I
24 says
absolutely.
we Beatles white. Yeah, I don't know what that means, but thank you, I think. But yeah, I mean, shall we kick the show? Should we start the show going?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, this is part two disc of the Beatles White Album. If you haven't caught the first one, you can venture onto the page, and that will be there for you. And then you can listen to them in order, or you could listen to them disc one, disc two order. I mean, I've never tried listening to the White Album that way, but that could be interesting too. But without further ado, here is we're going to start this off, and we're starting off with track one, "Birthday."
Bum,
How
bum, bum, bum,
high
bum, 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 bum. You say it's your birthday.
day? You know what? I like immediately it strikes me as this is a parallel to back in the USSR. I mean, as with I think a lot of records were formatted those days, you start off with like a kick-in track, a kick-in kind of like almost poppy track that gets listeners in because I guess people would buy the album, they immediately want to hit. And I honestly prefer Birthday to back in the USSR.
That's okay.
Yeah. I mean, that could be
Okay.
because I've got my own, like, perhaps like prejudice against Bang the Useless from listening to it so many times as a kid.
I
But
know, I
I
know.
do
You
really
really
like this
have
one.
something against the back in the USSR, man.
It's a great
Um,
song, but like, I think it's just overexposure has slightly killed it for me.
so birthday, I love birthday. Oh, was that me? I'm sorry. I
Oh.
was listening to Baby Love. Um, so
Is that on the
so
second disc? It's this hidden track.
no.
Yeah.
So I love it so much. They started writing it. Paul and John were writing this, and it started off as an instrumental where they recorded a majority of it just as an instrumental, and they did. It was like a 12-bar blues kind of thing, and they were just doing. Okay, we'll do this. We'll do 6 bars of this, and then 6 bars of this, and then go into a C. We'll go into C, and then we'll come back, and then they said they went to go watch a movie. It was I forget what movie it is, but it was some 1950s movie that had Eddie Cochran in it. And then they go watch the movie, and then they come back, and then McCartney just writes the lyrics. And I know that Lennon states that it was a play on another birthday song, which was apparently he said it was rubbish, but this song was kind of like Paul's kind of like take on that song. But um, I remember it from that iconic scene in 16 Candles when Anthony Michael Hall is singing it to Molly Ringwald. And
Oh,
yeah, but I would think that might have been the first time that I had heard it. But I love it. You know what my favorite part is? Where it breaks down and it's like, da, 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 da. Yes, we're going to a private party. And then it goes, birthday, I would like you to dance. I love that part so much, man. That's such a killer part, man.
have you ever listened to Birthday on your birthday and been like, as this is my birthday song, I'm going to stick Birthday on, and I'm going to imagine Paul's here trying to wish me well.
There's not enough birthday songs. That's what it is.
True.
And yeah, of course I listened to the song on my birthday. Of course I did growing up. Several times my dad would wake me up to that because my dad obviously is a big music fan, and he would play that song for me. Yeah, A+ for me. This song is great. It's absolutely a collab in the truest form of a collab. It's a collab between Lennon and McCartney, and I like it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely no arguments for me. Would you take it over back in the USSR or think USSR? I mean, it kind of is a superior track, but I mean, don't let my
Like,
jadedness.
you're like, you know what you're like? You're like, hey, did you know you're like stirring the pot between being back in the
I'm
USSR, and
trying
you're
to
like,
start a disc one, disc two rivalry.
you're like, hey man, has back in the USSR ever done anything nice for you? Like, have they
Yeah,
ever bought you lunch?
yeah. How many
Right?
times have you been back to the USSR? Is what I'm saying. But how many times have you had a birthday? The song is instantly more
Oh,
relatable.
genius, sir, genius. Solid logic.
Yeah,
So what's okay? I think we covered it, right? Yay! Can we get a
yeah.
clap for that one?
Yeah, we can actually. I keep forgetting about the soundboard, but oh, there's a drum roll as well. Up next, we have track two, and track two is Your Blues. Now, I think this is a stronger track, even than Birthday. This track has got such a great crunch to it. I remember every time I hear it, I just think like the Beatles can really rock. Like they can really rock when they want to.
Yeah, it is phenomenal. And I didn't. I used to hate this song. I used to hate this song growing up. Right when it starts, yes, I'm lonely. It just bothered me. I didn't really care for it. And later on, as got older and got more gray hairs, I was like, oh, okay, I get this song. I like this song. Blues style song. It was a take on the British blues scene that was kind of rolling around in the 60s around that time. And it was kind of him being kind of taking a jab at that British blues scene. And those lyrics clearly are very, a very depressing, you know, atmosphere for that song. And but what was cool about that song in Your Blues is, did you know that he performed that with the Dirty Mac? And do you know who the Dirty Mac is?
The Dirty Mac.
Do you know?
I'm guessing it's a blues artist now.
No. So the Dirty Mac is a like all-star band. And it was the Stones. They were about the Stones put on this circus. It was like this like vaudevillian like circus show that they were going to do where they had like fire eaters and
Oh,
the strong man. They put the concert.
yeah. I'm
Yeah, they
sorry.
put the concert
I've
credits
seen that
out.
concert a concert on YouTube. They're set in a circus tent.
Yes, and so the Dirty Mac was a all-star band that had John Lennon. It had Mitch Kramer from the Hendrix band. It had uh, who else did it have? Eric Clapton, and then it had Keith Richards playing bass.
Yeah.
Um,
Is that Mitch
and
Mitchell? I think Mitch Kramer's on Seinfeld.
did I say Mitch Kramer?
Yeah,
No, I didn't.
I think so. Well, it's recorded. I don't know. I have Mitch Kramer, but yeah, I mean Mitch Mitchell. Yeah, great drummer from the Hendrix Experience.
Yes, 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 yes. Wow, that's funny, man. So no, it's Mitch Kramer. It's yeah, he's so so they put that they performed it as a Dirty Mac, and the Dirty Mac was a play on Fleetwood Mac. But that version is insane, really good version. And then I listened to a version by the Plastic Ono Band in 1969, and it is terrible because it's got Yoko like just screaming in the song. But another song written from the India sessions, like as far as like this is where it derived from, was had written it in India.
Yeah, that's weird. So, like, what is Yoko doing the kind of wails then of the blues?
Yes.
Did she even sing the lyrics? Because I've seen performances with Chuck Berry, John Lennon, and Yoko, and she just seems to scream into a microphone and hit a bongo, not even in time to the music. I think she's doing performance art, and they're all doing a song.
Yeah, and I know the video that you're talking about because that's the video where like Chuck Berry like gives her like that side eye look because he's like he looks back at her and he's like, what is she doing?
All over his lovely music. And like the thing is, Chuck Berry is a huge influence of the Beatles, especially John Lennon. Like John Lennon, grew up loving Chuck Berry. It was a strange thing, but I guess it shows the power that maybe Yoko had. That even John Lennon playing with one of his idols, he couldn't say no to her. I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Can you imagine that? I mean, I think Lennon was just so love struck. I mean, that's some serious love potion number nine, you know? Like he was under her spell, man. And I mean, yeah, what are you gonna do? It's love. It's love.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, your blues is a phenomenal song. Really cool blues track. But if you haven't listened to it, go check out the the Dirty Mac version on YouTube because I watched it a couple times today. So good.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I'm not Eric Clapton's biggest fan, but he does know his blues. And yeah, and I'm a huge Mitch Mitchell fan from the oh sorry, Mitch Kramer fan
Mitch Kramer.
the Seinfeld Experience. Yeah, um, yeah, no, that's it's a great track for me. That's probably, yeah. I mean, that's as we're moving through the album, that's taken number one spot as my favorite. Just over
Wow.
birthday. I like blues.
Wow.
I know blues seems to get a lot of hate these days, and I think if I
You
listen to
know,
too much blues, I turn against it. But every so often, I really like it when the Beatles do it for some reason. Every bluesy Beatles track, I've always got time for.
when I used to go to my mom would give me money, right? And I'd go to the store. I'd go to like the flea market, and I would, but they would have toys or cards. This was back in the '90s, and I would spend my money and almost immediately as I got inside the flea market. And she's like, "Are you sure you want to spend your money so quickly?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, yeah, this is what I want." I feel like that's what you're doing. You're like, "I'm done. Your blues, my favorite track off the album."
Oh no, no, it's not. I wouldn't say my favorite track of it. I think it's coming up though. I came into listening to the White Album almost convinced that my favorite track is Happiness is a Warm Gun, and that might even be, I thought was one of my favorite, maybe my favorite Beatles song. But listening to this too, I think it's been definitely been replaced by some of the stuff on some of the material coming up.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
not your blues, but you blues is a strong. I don't know. It adds to this this rawness that's about to start coming out. I think.
What's a better song? I guess that's why they call it the blues from Elton John or your blues from the Beatles.
Yeah, I'd take your blues from the Beatles. I would say a better song though is still got the blues by Gary what's his name has one of the greatest guitar solos of all time for me.
My
Um,
favorite is
Gary Moore.
Subterranean Homesick Blues. That's a good one
Okay.
from Lennon. Not Lennon, Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan. Man, I'm getting names wrong all over this place.
Yeah, it's so hard. I think especially with how much music exists these days, I'm constantly like referencing things and then being like, is that even the right band? Is that even the right era? Well, what have I confused here? You know, like
Well, so that's it. Your blues. We love it, right? A
yeah,
plus for me.
A plus. Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't like it growing up, but I'm glad that it's something you're growing into.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yay!
Excellent. Well, after that, we have a really beautiful song, and
Mhm.
we have Mother's Nature's Son. Which I love this song.
Oh man, I love the descending guitar riff in the beginning, and I listened to a cover today from John Denver, and I was like, man, this is really good. This is, like I don't really care for John Denver, but like as I was like scrolling through stuff with this particular song, I found some really cool covers, and so that's always interesting is when you have you have a good song, but then like you hear like tons of covers of it because people love it so much, and some covers are almost outshining the original, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
yeah, John Denver's an interesting one. If I could imagine anyone singing it, I could probably imagine John Denver. That's right up his alley. That kind of the homeliness, the folky vibe.
yeah, I you should check it out. It's really good, man. Like, I just had talked about John Denver recently because we were going through talking about the Satanic Panic from the '80s, and then that kind of rolled into the music censorship with the PMRC and Tipper Gore in the United States, and them trying to censor albums. And John Denver was on some of those Senate hearings, really, really like I guess trying to protect, like he was there as an artist saying that we don't need to be censored, and but I did read later on that he was kind of phoning a lot of that stuff in, and he didn't really care about it.
Well,
But still fighting for it.
yeah, well, I wonder how much John Denver's music's ever been described as satanic. I don't know. I couldn't think of a almost less satanic artist. I don't know.
It's
Maybe
as
there's a
almost as if
dark
they're
side
like,
to John Denver that I don't know.
yeah, maybe they were just utilizing him as a face. And they're like, look, we got John Denver. You know, see, he
Yeah.
cares about music rights and the censorship. And but yeah, no, he's got a cool cover of Mother Nature's Son. I I adore this song. I like as it starts off slow, and then man, Paul McCartney, just beautiful baritone voice in it. At times he almost, I think his voice can get a little androgynous. Do you ever find that?
McCartney, yeah, definitely. I think it's his. I was thinking about the kind of the Lennon McCartney battle again um, today, and I kind of summed it up as like almost McCartney's the one that you want to take home to meet your parents, and like he's very charming, but like he seems like a good guy, whereas like John Lennon, I feel like will try and seduce your mom and get into a fight with your dad over some political issue. Like he's the wild one. I don't know why I keep like placing them in hypothetical situations, but yeah, I think, and it's partly down to McCartney has this soft, sweet side, which I think ties into his slightly androgynous nature, which I think is almost often tended to be something that's quite popular in pop stars, particularly male pop stars, is that androgynous like, I mean, you look at people like David Bowie, like that kind of that feminine quality almost boosts their star power a bit more by increasing their appeal, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think it really worked for him. I think it really worked for his vocal delivery, and that particular song, his vocals really shine, and he's just a beautiful voice. And I'm trying to think of how and then it kind of just fades off, right? Like after that, and then it's just that's just a Paul song, so it's just him, guitar, and I think that there's some brass in the background.
Yeah. Um,
I'm not sure. I know it's not a full band piece.
yeah,
I don't
I
think.
remember it being quite bass driven, like a real.
Mhm.
I mean, that's the other thing with Paul, and I think especially re-listening to the music that, yeah, he's just so talented as a musician. I think there's no arguments really from me that he's so versatile, and his command of just musical instruments and music is so strong. Like he's a kicking bass player. I remember I think I watched an interview with the bass player from Nirvana, and they were like, "Oh, Paul McCartney came up to came up to this session once when we were playing, and he was like, I was just so like almost scared to play in front of him because that's Paul McCartney on bass."
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I think the bass driven Beatles songs, I feel like I don't know, yeah, you really that really stomps that Paul McCartney flavor over it. And then moving on to track four, we've got Everybody's Got Something to Hide. Um, ex-
Except for
except
me
me
and
and
my
my
monkey.
monkey. Yeah. Yeah, is there a theme where he seems to be inspired by seeing monkeys? I don't know, this Beatles link seems to be with
Well, this was
um
this was Lennon's take on it. Before it was McCartney's take on it, right?
yeah, so they both get like one monkey
They,
inspiration in the album.
yeah, George Martin's like, you get one monkey song per Beatle. Okay, that's
Yeah.
it. And so, obviously, we're referencing "Why Don't We Do It in the Road" because it was inspired by McCartney seeing two monkeys fornicating in the street, right?
Yeah.
And then everybody's got something to hide except for me and my monkey by Lennon. Um, this is a really cool song, but basically, from what I was reading, it's just a like a take on a lot of the Maharishis, the lessons that they were taught, and some of his speeches. I mean, if you look at the lyrics, it's very like very into that, like your insides are out and your insides are in. here, let me get to the lyric page. But it was another track written in India, and I think George said it was some of the lyrics were like directly, like just like taken from, some of the Maharishi's words.
Okay, that's quite cool. He didn't try and sue them then, like the Obla Di Obla Da guy did.
No, I think it's because they got him on some stuff we'll talk about a little later here. But yeah, no, he didn't come after them for that.
Yeah.
But that's what George said about that song. The song is cool because it starts off with that bum bum dun, dun. Like it's got like this weird rhythm,
Yeah,
and
it
it kind of
is.
go. It's a weird rhythm that like you can't. Like I can't get it, and then but that riff goes pretty much throughout the song. In the back you can kind of hear it too, and then at the end you can hear like it kind of comes back up in the mix. So it kind of is like thematic throughout the whole song, is that like that beginning intro, right?
Yeah.
um the only part I really don't like is that part where he's like, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, and they overdub like three or four Lennons just going, come on, come on, come on. I'm not a fan of that.
Okay, yeah, I could see that, I guess. I mean, yeah, I mean, as is the case later on in this disc, I feel like Lennon's maybe crazy outer spaceness does start to creep in a bit, and maybe yeah, he's left alone at I like to imagine he was left alone at the studio a few nights, and then just whatever happened on the album, was left there, and then like nobody checked it till later on, and they were like, "What, John? Why have you done like 7 vocal tracks layered?" And he was like, "Oh, it's too late now." And they're like, "Oh, all right then. I guess we've gotta take that."
Yeah, he's like, I've already done it. They're already like tracked.
Yeah.
So he says, let's see here. Deeper you go, the higher you fly. The higher you fly, the deeper you go. Come on is such a joy. Come on is such a joy. Um, your inside is out when your outside is in. So to me, so come on, come on is such joy. So like I said, George was just like, oh, he's just basically was repeating what Maharishi was saying. Um, but it's a cool song. I like Harrison's riff that he plays. That when it starts rocking out, I really dig that distorted riff that he plays, and love that intro guitar um, chord progression. That bum 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 bum. I love that, man. It's a rocking track.
It is. I really like that kind of like waily. I like sometimes they use these riffs as like almost transitions. So it would start in one key and then it will move a bit, and then they'll move into the next section. I think that's something that's really cool that I feel like a lot of bands maybe, I don't know, that's maybe underutilized in other music I've heard, is why don't you have this weird kind of like transition riff that like moves around? Um, I don't know.
Right.
It's part of the way they just construct music, and why I think there's so much depth, sound wise, to the way these songs are constructed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. What's your take on it? You love it? You love it?
I really like it. I wouldn't necessarily say I love it. I mean, I get that perhaps he's, yeah. I mean, from what you're explaining about the backstory of the lyrics, I get that there's a reference that I don't. Sorry, there's a reference that I don't necessarily, yeah, that I guess that there's a reference behind the song, but I feel like lyrically the song's maybe not the strongest either. So I'm gonna say I really like it. I'll give it an A plus, maybe an A or an A plus. I like the rock and nature of it, but I think it's not a perfect track.
Okay, gotcha. I like it. I think it's an A plus for me too as well. And it's one of those ones that I always forget about, and I'm like, oh yeah, I love this song. I usually go to the same tracks a lot when I listen to the White Album that always hit me the same way. I'm like, oh man, this is so good. Going back to the first side of the album, obviously, a track like Martha, My Dear, and then I Will, and I'm So Tired, and Happiness Is Where I'm going. Obviously, those ones like hit hard, but I always forget about Everybody's Got Something Higher except for Me and My Monkey.
Yeah, I think also partly I think the long titles, when things have got kind of long, not very catchy titles, it's almost harder for them to stick in your head. Whereas, yeah, songs, I mean, like the next track up, "Sexy Sadie," you're not going to forget that song in a hot minute.
Yeah, yeah. Was that the transition?
That's the
I got with it.
transition. That's the transition. Just like the Beatles, I'm trying to like layer the transitions into the talk, just like they do with the music.
There you go, man. Sexy Sadie. I want to hear your opinion on Sexy Sadie.
I love Sexy Sadie. Sexy Sadie for me, I think should be like held up as one of the iconic Beatles songs. I feel like it's got such a vibe to it. It's got I love the wum. There's so much I like about it. I think it's one of the other shot songs that almost reminds me a bit of I'm So Tired, and it's like a very strong atmosphere in the song. But unlike I'm So Tired, I think it develops a lot better.
Sexy Sadie, I've got so much to say about it, but Sexy Sadie almost reminds me of A Day in the Life a little bit at times. I read the news today. And then you
Yeah.
have Sexy Sadie. It's got that piano in the beginning, and it has almost the same vibe as a Day in the Life, right? Sexy Sadie, Lennon singing. It's all about the Maharishi, and the Maharishi basically is Sexy Sadie, and he's referencing the Maharishi basically making a pass at Mia Farrow, I believe, and and he really they all have he got, especially Lennon got a bad taste in his mouth after they had spent that time there, and then him seeing the Maharishi doing that. And so you read the lyrics, you can kind of see where that is going. But as far as the song goes, the song is phenomenal.
Yeah. What? So you're saying like Lennon was like, I mean, we came to you for spiritual advice, and here you are just like hitting on Mia Farrow. It's kind of almost like undone some of the sage-like wisdom you've imparted.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like looking up to a role model, and then all of a sudden you see that role model in a very compromised situation, or unflattering situation, and you just kind of like lose faith in what you just learned. And so Sexy Sadie, what have you done? You made a fool of everyone. I mean, that's kind of how it starts.
Yeah. All right. That's put a completely different spin on the track for me, actually. I quite like that, though. I mean, that's very much in keeping with the Lennon character, in that Lennon will tear down his heroes. I mean, I remember this watching this interview where they were talking about the Beatles meeting with Elvis, and he was originally a bit of a fan of theirs, but then kind of turned against them later on. And
Mm.
and John Lennon, the ballsy man that he is, just walked up to Elvis and was just like, "Listen, Elvis, I'm a big fan of your work, but why is your new stuff no good? Why don't you go back to playing good music again? Your last output's not been great." And I was like, "You're going up to the king and saying that?" He couldn't help but speak his mind. And I think it's one of the
We,
curses of Lennon and part of his genius,
yeah.
perhaps.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like I always admire that about John Lennon. Her, like, he's like everyone always like compares John Lennon. Like he was the punk, like he was the punk rock. He was so punk rock, and I understand that. But like the whole time, I'm thinking, man, John Lennon was just kind of a rude guy. Like he was just like he's just being rude.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I mean, you're not wrong, I guess. Like, I like how we had these two different takes where I'm just like, yeah, he's part of his genius, and you're like, yeah, he's just a bit rude, and you're right, like, I mean, you would be worried about introducing John Lennon to people at a party because you'll be like, oh, I hope he doesn't do the John Lennon thing and just like really upset everyone. Like, come on, John,
It's like,
please, shouldn't
oh,
you just be on your best behavior?
like someone's talking to me and they're like, "Oh, did you hear John's new song?" Yeah, yeah, I heard it. I heard it. It's good. It's good. What's wrong? I just don't get along with him, man. He's just rude. He's mean. Like he's just not very nice. I don't want to hang out with him. Like
Yeah.
I wonder if he did turn off some people. I mean, like clearly he had enemies, and I mean, he even goes as far as like the way he is. He goes as far as like writing music about his bandmates in his songs. I mean, there was beef songs between Lennon and McCartney where they were going back. This predates any kind of beef songs, from the '90s hip hop era. Like Lennon straight up wrote a song about McCartney, and McCartney wrote one back about him, and you know, and Lennon even had Harrison go on those tracks. Um, he's just out. He was an outspoken guy, and he had a lot of opinions, and he was mean.
Yeah, I mean, I know, and in his personal life, he's not the. I always think, yeah, McCartney stands up as the better figure, and I mean, if you had to meet a Beatle, I mean, obviously, I mean, your options are now limited to Ringo and McCartney, but you'd almost be guaranteed to have a good time if you met Paul McCartney. He'd be gracious and kind, whereas you think John Lennon, he might just refuse to speak to you, swear at you, spit at you. You don't really know what you get with if you came up to John Lennon. But I feel like John Lennon also had like a weird reverence for kind of really out there artists. So I think maybe if you hyped up the Pretense, maybe you might get something from him. But if you came to him maybe on too much of a grounded level, I think he'd probably have no time for you.
There you go, man. I mean, and we just went on, I think, a tangent on Lennon's personality.
Yeah.
But this is what it is, right? You can't not talk about these kind of things when you talk about the Beatles. But yeah, Sexy City, I love it. I love the piano on it. I love Lennon's lyric content. I love his delivery. Um, and I like that part you were talking about where it's like wow 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 wow. I know exactly what you're talking about there. Phenomenal song, and we're already like we're what 4 songs in or 3 songs in?
We're that's the fifth song. Yeah,
Holy
it's
moly,
flying by.
it's flying by, and we still have yet to get a really bad song, right? I think by this point in the first album, we had already like hit a couple.
Oh yeah, we're at Wild Honey Pie right now. So like that's a big difference. That Sexy Sadie versus Wild Honey Pie. I mean, there's no comparison. And the next song on the first album is the first disc, sorry, is the continuing story of Bungalow Bill. Ugh. But the next song on disc 2 is none other than the belter, Helter Skelter. Track 6, which is also
Ooh,
a great song.
oh my goodness! What I mean, whew, what a hell of a track. Really cool. Just Paul, and this is a Paul McCartney song, by the way. And this is your my boy, and you always but McCartney wrote this song. Isn't that crazy that this is a McCartney song? Like the balladeer, the softy, right? The heartthrob writes this rocker, and he writes it. Do you know the story, by the way? If you want to go for it, you can tell the story.
No, no, you go for it.
Okay, so he writes this song. He had read an article, and the article basically had stated that he read this article about this band talking about their new album, and the album. And he basically says in the article that the band says we just wrote the biggest, heaviest, craziest sound that has all this echo, and it's just real spacey and real loud and just yelling. And McCartney was like, "Oh man, like well, it's a shame that this band did it because that sounds like a really fun thing to do." And then he hears that band's album, and he's like, "This isn't really what they said it was going to be on the interview that I read. In fact, it's very like composed. It's very well written. It's very like real well produced. It sounds clean." He's like, "That doesn't sound like it." And then so he's like, "Well, I guess I should do it then." And so that's what it became. Now the original track was an acoustic song, an acoustic version of Helter Skelter, and it's very it's you can see the skeletal structure of Helter Skelter, but um, given that story of that what he had found, they make it the loudest thing that they can. So obviously you hear these distorted guitars he's getting out of. out of those, those Fender amps, which they were using. And you know who that band was that he had read and referenced?
No, who's which band is it?
You just said it. You just said it. It was the Who.
The
It's the Who
Who.
that,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Oh, so the Who were trying to make this super heavy song, and Paul McCartney was like, I can go more than that."
Yeah, yeah. He said he went to after he read that article first, and then he listened to the album following, and he's like, this isn't what they said. I don't know if it was Daltrey or Townsend, but he's like, this isn't what they were talking about. So I'm going to do it, and so that's what he did, and he created the first what seems to be one of the first heavy metal songs, man. One of the first like really heavy songs.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because Paul McCartney loves rock music. I mean, I've seen lots of videos where he plays with Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters, or he kind of helps them out. He plays drums on some of their tracks on a track quite recently. So like he loves rock music and slightly heavier music. And the thing is, that's the side of McCartney I like when he ditches the sap and he's just trying to, it's edgy McCartney. It's almost like he's his alter ego,
What's that?
the
I,
kind of
I,
dark side of Paul McCartney, the edgy, rocky side of Paul McCartney. I feel like he
yes.
almost it's like his the other side to him. But it's also, I guess, credit to him as a musician is that he can access both of those worlds. He can send you to he can get sweet with you, but he can also kick you out of bed and throw you out into a pit of lava.
Yeah, and that's what I love about, like what we're doing here is with double albums, right? Like you get such a variety of that, and you get to, and you we it's showcased. We're really getting the showcase from the artists themselves, where we get to see all of the facets they have to give us this art. And so they're like, yeah, we can do this. You kind of miss that with like particular genres, right? Like you kind of miss that, what I'm talking about with like, a black metal genre. Like I dig black metal, but like that's really all you're getting, right? Like,
Yeah,
do you know what I'm saying? And then you have artists like that where like they'll put out stuff and they're all over the place, which is why I love the double album.
yeah,
Because you get these artists get to explore like all these feelings that they have that they put into their songs, and they're not just relegated to like, we're a rock band and we're just going to play rock songs, like that's why we get these whimsical stuff from McCartney, when you get these crazy cool pieces from Lennon, these really heavy pieces from Lennon, and wild grand old opry songs from Ringo. So, do you know the connection with the Charles Manson stuff with Helter Skelter?
yeah. That it directly influenced his manifesto, and he was apparently getting a lot of meanings out of it that the rest of us weren't. Is in general, but yeah, it was weird that I guess that's also how relevant the Beatles were at the time. That a Beatles album could essentially almost form the backbone of a cult. And yeah, very infamous one at that. I wonder if they have any regrets about releasing Helter Skelter, given what happened with the Manson family, or is that Paul McCartney being like, "I told you I'd make one of the heaviest songs. Look what I one did."
Oh, yeah. I mean, how heavy can you get, man? I mean, like, that's pretty heavy stuff, right? To be like, how heavy am I? I wrote songs that inspired some really horrific acts and a cult to boot. Obviously we're talking about the horrible like Sharon Tate murders, right?
Yeah,
With Charles Manson, and his cult writing "Helter Skelter" on the wall. So I can't imagine as an artist how that must feel, right? How did McCartney have to feel? How did he feel when he heard that? Like they're like, "Hey, did you hear? Like this has happened?" And they wrote "Helter Skelter" on the wall. Like,
yeah,
God, that's gotta be surreal.
so surreal. I bet John Lennon, the crazy man, then he's thought it was cool in some weird way. I don't know, but I feel like I don't know. I worry that yeah, I don't know that could negatively affect like a sweet man like Paul. I
Not too
like your
sweet, not too
yeah,
sweet.
not this week. He's gone with a wild side, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that thing you mentioned about bands kind of you listen to an album, a black metal album, and you're going to get wall to wall black metal. Are you saying like Cradle of Filth need like a polka track or like like maybe
Uh,
Burzum should really
yeah, I
venture
think,
into like have a disco number on their next album?
yeah, I mean, what's more metal than that, man? To like fucking, like, what's more punk rock to do something just out of the box, man? Like that's what I love black metal. I love, I'm growing to punk, like I didn't grow up with a lot of punk. But what I always found was like I was like, why don't they just like try different areas to move to, like it always bothered me that like a lot of those albums, like a lot of it's just it's very cohesive and you know same kind of structure throughout. I want more.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy into the progressive rock stuff, but I want more out of it though. I want more.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what the other thing I like about prog rock is that it also tends to they flirt with a lot of different genres, and it's something that always attracted me to the genre. And I do think more bands should be taking those risks, but also maybe it's an indictment of you have to be able to move to different genres, but also do it well. I think, and I think that can be quite daunting if that your whole kind of musical background is in one particular genre, if you've written a good punk song because you've already written punk songs and punk. Whereas, like, if you're then making a ballad, you're like, is this a good ballad? I mean, I can follow the structure, but how do I make a good one? And I think it's testament to the Beatles and the band
Yeah,
that they are that they didn't even feel any sense of fear about you know grabbing some kind of new genre or almost creating and helping to create a completely new sound and being like, no, it'll be fine, it'll be great. And yeah, such confidence you must have as a musician and artist to do that.
yeah, 100%. Going back to Helter Skelter, I love because Paul's playing guitar, by the way, and John Lennon is playing a bass. And so Paul's on that. Paul is like pretty much responsible for that main riff that you're hearing, that boom, 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 and like
Yeah,
he's really just like hitting the shit out of that E string, right? And it's resonating and it's vibrating. So you hear that. It almost sounds like you're tuning it down. It almost is akin to like the intro to Iron Man, right? The
yeah,
boom. So you're bending. He's not necessarily bending that E string, but he's hitting it so hard it's just resonating and vibrating so heavy that you're hearing that just ring out. But if you listen to it like that it's heavy. That E string is getting knocked the shit out, man. Like
yeah.
it's he's really pounding on that guitar.
Do you know what I want? I want a Helter Skelter that's like maybe 50 beats BPM or like real half speed and have it a doom, like a stoner metal doom version of that. I might actually do that as a cover. I would love that because it's yeah, yet again, it's that sense of this is gonna do. I also the other thing I really like about this track is the do 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 do. I really love those little like those little runs coming down that connect
He
the
um
parts.
he even does it on the acoustic version. He's just playing the chords, but he's like helter skelter, dee 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 dee, helter skelter. Like he's just doing it like the run it's like a chromatic run, right? Like a descending chromatic or runner, and you can see he's envisioning that already, right? Um, but I was going to say something else. Another last tidbit with Helter Skelter is U2 does this on Rattle and Hum. I don't know if I don't know. You probably hate U2, right? Maybe you like U2. I love U2, man.
I'm mixed. I'll say I'm mixed on U2. I feel like there's a prime U2 and then there's the rest of it.
And then there's the post you forced your album on our iPods U2.
Yeah. I wouldn't even go up to
Um,
that far necessarily, but yeah, I don't know. I have
but they
mixed
do
feelings on Edge and Bono and the rest of them. But
Well, they do a cover. They do a cover of Helter Skelter on that. It's like a famous live album they did called Rattle and Hum. It came out in the '80s. It was, I think, it was right after they recorded Joshua Tree. They were going on tour for Joshua Tree, and it was before under I forget that name of that album. Is it Under a Blood Red Sky? And but they're it's just a documentary, but they cover Helter Skelter, and they cover it really well, like really well, man. Like they do it justice. And I don't know if it's because I'm a YouTube fan, but man, they cover it.
Would you say it's
Seal of
heavier?
approval from me, man. Mm, yeah, I think it's heavier, but like just louder, and Bono really screams the crowd. It's honestly it's the Beatles version sounds a little bit more punk rock than their version. Their version's very polished. I mean, their U2 is a
Yeah,
very polished band, a
they are.
very
They're very
polished band.
stadium polish, I think. I think that's maybe
Mm,
part of my I don't know. I like a little bit of rawness in my music because I don't know. There's something about where I feel like you two are made to play in a stadium, and I feel like even that as a concert for me isn't my preferred venue if I'm gonna go and see someone. I like a slightly more intimate setting, but I want more energy, but in a smaller space than perhaps less energy spread over this huge area.
I get you. I get you. And so with Helter Skelter, there's so many like takes of it, so many takes of it, and but we hear the famous line, man. You got blisters on my fingers. That's what Ringo says, right?
Yeah.
From just banging the drums so hard, man. I mean, and that's another thing about this album is I think the drumming is really good.
Yeah, I think there's definitely this too. I feel like I don't know if he's warmed up or like Paul's stopped threatening to do the drum parts himself, but I feel like yeah, Ringo really steps up his game.
Yeah, 100%. Can we get a clap for Helter Skelter?
Oh yeah, I mean if any song deserves a clap, it is Helter Skelter. And that brings us nicely. Maybe make that a long clap, a long, long, long clap, because the next track is
Oh,
long, long, long. And
yes.
this is also a great song. I mean, can this too do any wrong at this stage? This has got a real like psyche rock kind of ballady feel to me, and yeah, I feel like it's another track that I imagine is very influential to a lot of the music that's going to come out in the 70s um, afterwards. And yeah, I mean, this too is killing disc one for me right now.
Yeah, yeah. Like I referenced earlier in this, where we see the redemption of George Harrison, and this is an absolute redemption from Piggies. Harrison gives us long, 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 and it is a crazy good song. Uh, that line in the beginning of the guitar part, bum 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 bum. That's so cool, man. And he says it can be interpreted as a love song, or it can be interpreted as a song written about God.
Yeah,
Uh, Clearly, Harrison was a very spiritual guy. He was very influenced by when went to India, and just super spiritual. So a lot of his writing had a lot to do with his beliefs, and long, long, long. Man, I feel like you can go out like you're tripping when you listen to that track, right? I mean, that's just me. It's a very crazy, trippy experience.
yeah, definitely. It's one of those songs that I imagine could be covered really well by someone like Jefferson Airplane or something. You could have a really spaced, far out version of it, and yeah, I don't know. I think the thing is with George, yeah, I think his spirituality drives him out there in a similar way to John Lennon, but he kind of ties it to this maybe ultimate truth meaning that he derives from his kind of voyages into the unknown. And whereas, yeah, John Lennon kind of I don't know, takes you to the abyss in some ways, whereas George takes you into the light and the immortal Gaia. I don't know what I'm saying, but I imagine it's something that George may say.
I don't know, man. It sounded good to me. You know, I think Long, Long, Long is intense. It's intense. It's epic. It's big. You know, all the way to the end when he's just it goes nuts. But it's a very spacey kind of song. I can't really relate it to any other pieces that they put out. Like I want to say like maybe A Day in the Life again is as epic as Long, Long, Long. I don't even know why Long, Long, Long didn't get as much accolades as a song like A Day in the Life. I mean, I can see, you know, obviously different eras, different time frames. You know, Sergeant Pepper was, you know, another beast in its own. Um, I sometimes I feel like maybe the double album of the White Album was its own enemy, right? Because there was so much material that people were just like, it's just so big that some stuff could get lost in the mix of all those songs. But it's an epic song, man.
Yeah, do you think maybe if it came out on Sergeant Pepper's that perhaps it would have it would do you think maybe it would get more shine because I mean it would maybe compete less or it would stand out perhaps from other ones? The thing is with the White Album is because there's so much going on, it's kind of hard to keep track of everything. I mean, like you were saying earlier, that everybody's got something to except me and my monkey being a kind of song you almost forget about this because there's so much there and there's so much almost competing and conflicting ideas that it's hard to keep a finger on the pulse with everything and that maybe little gems like this go amiss.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Absolutely. Like you just said it more concise. Absolutely, man. Like that's exactly what I'm saying. I told you I was wordy with my stuff. But yeah, I think that's what happened because there's no reason why it shouldn't have been a big hit. You know, that's and I was gonna say I just thought about it. I think that Long Long Long's closest cousin, because I told you I do this, right? Where I try to find the closest cousin to that song.
Yeah.
And the I think a B-side would probably be another Harrison track. It has to be. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think it'd be like a song like Within You Without You. Um,
Oh
I think that might be a close B side to, you know, Long, 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 right? Because it's
yeah.
very, because Within You Without You is a very faith driven song from Harrison. Um, so I think that they're definitely in the same lineage, same, you know, same
Same
tree of life. I don't
family.
know,
Yeah.
same family. There you go.
Same,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I know. I think you're right. I mean, it's by the sounds of it, it sounds like you should have been putting out these Beatles records, being like, no, 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 okay, long, long, long. That's the partner with within you with that, and then like
Yeah.
maybe you should have been there sorting it out. Maybe then some of these songs might have gotten the maybe
You
more
know,
respect.
that's the thing. That's the thing, man. Like I look at someone like Rick Rubin and I'm like, you know what? Put me in the chair,
Yeah.
okay? Let me be.
Maybe you should be the next Rick Rubin. Maybe is this part
I,
of your, you seem like there's a bit of a rivalry going that, I mean, I'd like to explore at some point, maybe get him on the talk and Jonks versus Rick Rubin and we can see what he's got to say for
please,
himself.
what a nobody has to say to Rick Rubin. I would love it. I
I
would
know, I just
love
like
it.
the idea with his like ridiculously expensive career, and you're like, the thing is, Rick, like, there's some things that I just don't think. What do you do? What do you actually
What do
do?
you what do you do? What would you say you do, Rick?
Yeah. You sounding a very John Lennon rude right now, and I liking it. I think
Hmm.
that's way up my street. And so yeah, I mean, A+ for me for sure
A
with
plus.
Long Long Long. One of my favorite tracks on the album altogether. And I think yeah, definitely an underrated one. And yeah, to go back to my previous point, this is currently my favorite track on side two, I think.
Oh man.
Actually, you know what?
Okay.
No, sorry,
Okay.
Helter Skelter. Helter Skelter probably. So Helter Skelter is a better track, but this is maybe like my favorite track that I just rediscovered so far.
So I'm gonna refrain from saying my favorite track because it should be coming up.
Yeah. Well, the next track is Revolution 1. Um,
So, what do you think of this one?
yeah, I mean, I prefer the original. I don't know, it's
The
better.
the, the heavy version?
Yeah, I don't know. This one, ironically, is kind of doo-woppy, which is what you were really pushing for was doo-wop versions of
Yeah.
Beatles songs, and they've given you one. Are you happy with it?
Sh- Yeah, no, I'm with you, buddy. I like the first. I like the rock version, but yeah, you hear that with shooby doo wop, woo wop, a
Yeah.
doo wop. You say you want a
Revolution.
revolution. I love the part where he's like, "Don't you know that you could count me out
Yeah,
in?" He has to do that, right? Like that's such a Lennon thing to do, man. But yeah, I like the rock version better. It's a very slowed down version, it's an acoustic version. You still have some, but it's a full band performance though.
yeah. I mean, I do wonder why this track got made, but I almost cause maybe because it's the White Album, they were like, oh yeah, we'll just do like another version of another song as well. I mean, it really epitomizes the free for all element to this album. They were
So do
like, why
you
not?
so so do you think that this might have been like the first piece of material on the second disc to like um where they kind of just were like being lazy here, or like do you just don't
Yeah,
like it, or
I don't dislike it because it's based on a great song that I love, but I feel like it doesn't need to be done again, and I feel like it is surplus to requirement. I don't think it deserves to be there necessarily. If I was going to cut anything, this is definitely the first song that I would cut on disc two. Someone in the comments on the first talk said that this was actually their favorite Beatles song, and they preferred this version. But yeah, I don't share that opinion, I'm afraid.
yeah, I agree. But it's still a fun song. Like there's some political undertones, right? It's talking about in this this track. Um, I'm not big into that. I just want to enjoy the music. I mean, what do you think about the whole political thing with Revolution?
Yeah, okay. So, like the things that where I feel like McCartney's faults are is perhaps his his sappiness, and in the same way, I feel like Lennon's faults are perhaps sometimes his over politicization in his music. That's kind of my gripe with each of them, and sometimes, yeah, I feel like I don't know. I'm not really here for that. Um, I can respect it, but it always has to be based around a really good song. And I mean, I feel like we're talking about the original Revolution now, and that's what annoys me about this song is that I don't know, maybe it's taking the place of what should be new music to me instead of just something else you've already done. But I am a big fan of the original song, and I don't really think about the message so much. I just think about the lyrics and the vibe to it.
Yeah, this might be the first time in this side of the album where I go to the next track. Like I no disrespect, I really do dig it, but I just never really I'll never finish it, and I just listen to the first couple bars and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna move on.
Yeah, there's no reason to re-listen to it. I think. I mean, there's nothing. It's not going to give you anything. I mean, is there any a time when you're like, I want to listen to Revolution, but I want the kind of doo-wop one instead of the real one? I don't think I've ever thought that.
This isn't the day for doo-wop for me. It was yesterday. I was feeling really into doo-wop.
Oh, like yesterday doo-wop cover. Okay, yeah, I could be down for that.
Now we're on to something. Now you
Yeah,
got me intrigued.
yeah.
So yeah, for me, probably like this one's like a C. No, it's a B. It's a B plus. You know why?
Okay,
Because it is a good song. It's a great song. I just don't like this particular version.
I'm giving it C minus because it's I don't know, it's recycling, and I feel like they're better than that. I think But I mean, that brings us on to honey pie. Now, I was thinking about this. Obviously, we have wild honey pie on the first disc, and now we have honey pie. Was wild honey pie John Lennon trying to make fun of honey pie now? I mean, the order's the other way round. But I mean, why is Wild Honey Pie on the album and yet Honey Pie is on the album and Honey Pie is a good song? Why is a Wild Honey Pie a good song? I'm confused.
Oh, me too. But you think that Honey Pie is a good song? Because I am shocked that you like Honey Pie. If you're going to say that, that's very.
It's sappy. It's real
That's not.
sappy, but I think it is a good song.
Oh, it's great. It's McCartney's take on like that 1920s. It's like music hall, like music, like that very big theatrical, 1920s music. Think like My Blue Heaven, or like kind of like an intro, like like that. I was thinking about like what kind of music was he trying to emulate, and it's kind of like that very show tuney kind of like 20s big big band kind of feel to it.
Yeah,
Um,
like he should be dancing with a cane and twirling it around as he's singing.
that's That's literally what he says.
Yeah.
That's literally he was talking in an interview, and he's like, I like that kind of like, showmanship, that music. I'm wearing a three-piece suit and cane. I mean, he even does it in the video for Your Mother Should Know, like that on that video they shot for that. He does that, like it's a whole like flapper, not flapper, 1920s like style, like where he's like got the cane and like dancing and everything. But I love this track so much. I love it so much. I listen to it very often, and that whole. They even have like the gramophone kind of like crackling of the vinyl, and he's like, "Now she's gone and hit the big time in the USA." And then, bum bum, honey pie, you are driving me. Oh,
I'm
dude,
just
it's so
picturing
good.
you with jazz hands right now.
That's exactly what I was doing. I was doing
Yeah.
jazz hands. But John Lennon does the guitar solo on this song, which is pretty cool. I didn't know that. John Lennon is playing the guitar solo. Um, Love it about a woman who makes it big as an actress, and about a guy who's in love with her, and he can't wait till she gets back from being a big star in the USA. And you know Oh, I love it. Will the wind that blew her boat across the sea kindly send her sailing back to me? Um, I like to cover this song too. The chords in this song are great. They're reminiscent of like a ragtime, or like a. You ever listen to like Django Reinhardt, like the
Yeah.
real down, like the chord structures they use, and like the down strokes, like the tick 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 tick. It's lot kind of reminiscent of that. Really fun song to play on guitar, and I love it. It's a very theatrical song, and I think that this is one of Paul McCartney's like best moments
Okay. Well, best moments on the whole album or in his life.
in his life.
Wow, that is a bold statement. I mean, I definitely wouldn't go. I definitely wouldn't go that far. I mean, it's like it's not super up my street, but I do quite like this one. I like this one. Yeah, I like it more than a lot of the other kind of what I kind of see is almost the kind of sillier tracks. I mean, what are you taking this over Rocky Raccoon then?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
100%.
Good. All right.
You,
I'm with you on that.
you mean Rocky Sassoon?
Oh,
That's what
sorry.
you mean,
Yeah,
right?
I do. I mean Rocky Kramer.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
please make fun of me for that for the rest of my life, man.
yeah, what is the deal with Wild Honey Pie then? Why is Wild Honey I mean Wild Honey Pie is not even vaguely similar. I can't work out what's going on here because I mean Wild Honey Pie is an offense to music, I think, whereas Honey Pie is like a nice little song. And I do wonder, is there a story there that maybe John Lennon's like, I mean, this strikes me as a sort of song that John Lennon wouldn't like for some reason. I don't know why.
I think Wild Honey Pie was a very experimental song. Um, I think because we're gonna get there soon to the track that we're talking about earlier, but they were clearly experimenting, not as much as like they were experimenting in the sense of when they did Sergeant Pepper, because it
Yeah.
seems like their experiments on Sergeant Pepper like were more like user friendly, like easier on the ears and, that experimentation, right? But when it came to the experimentation on the White Album, like they were, it's like whoa, whoa, like let's calm it down, guys. And they're like, no, honey pie, like they were just like,
Yeah. Do you think that maybe then on there could be an argument to be made that like on Sergeant Pepper's, they're like, let's do some weird stuff and try and weird everyone out. And everyone went, this is genius. This is one of the greatest albums ever. And they were like, let's try a lot harder then. We clearly didn't like ram it home enough. Because I get that impression a bit on the White Album. They were like, okay, you like that? How about Piggies? How about Wild Honey Pie? How about the continuing story of Bungalow Bill? Do you like that? You think that's good? It's almost like I feel like in some ways they're almost daring their audience.
that, yeah, like as if like the Beatles were like they go in the room and they're like, guys, I don't know what we can do. They love everything, guys. They love everything.
Yeah, I would feel
Let's
like that. I mean, because you got to imagine at the time you're looking at the charts and Beatles are holding like 5 or 6 spots with different songs from their album. That I mean, that's unprecedented. I don't think anyone's done that since. I don't think anyone ever will. But like imagine being so successful that you don't even have a couple songs up there. You're holding like a huge chunk of the top 10 best-selling song charts. And you got to think like maybe how do we make something they don't like? And I almost feel like that would definitely become a I wish I was in that position, but that would definitely become a game. I think a game that I think that they would be interested in playing, perhaps.
Yeah. So you do like Honey Pie?
I think it's a good song. I don't hate Honey Pie. I do quite like yeah, maybe I have
What do
more of
you
a penchant for that
what do
kind of
you
1920s-y. I don't know. I like the
what do you
silliness there for some
like?
reason.
Okay. So you do like the whimsical stuff right here, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't want to feel like I'm stuck in this hole where I'm not allowed to like anything whimsical ever again. But I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm going back on every opinion I have. I think for some of Beatles whimsicalness, I think maybe there's a time and a place when it's a good time to play it to me. And like during those times, I'll be like, "Oh, I love this. This is really good. I do enjoy this." And then there are other times where I'm not in the mood. Whereas there are other songs that I'm always in the mood for. So I think it's me. I mean, I'm saying it's the Beatles' problem that they didn't make a song that I liked, but I think the problem's with me rather than them.
Well, yeah.
But if I was Rick
um,
Rubin, maybe
yeah.
I'd have a stronger opinion there.
Oh, you'd have a ton of opinions, huh? Because all right, man. Let's get going. What's the next track?
The next track is Savoy Truffle. I love this track. This one is another like hidden gem for me that it really surprised me because I think it's one of the when I went to start re-listening to this album, obviously there's loads of tracks I remember really well, and then there are other tracks like this one that I can't think that I've listened to that many times. I love the brass section in this one. I think this is George Martin at some of his best work. I think, yeah, he really builds it into something, and yeah, I really enjoyed this.
So yeah, here we go. I mean, good song, great song actually, and another redemption from George Harrison. It's a Harrison track written about his best friend Clapton's fondness of chocolate. That's what it says. It was written. That's all there is to it. But it's a Harrison song. It's a really cool song too. Harrison writes. You can tell. Like I can always tell. Like because like the writings are very. That's the thing with artists, right? Like artists are sound like themselves. Lennon sounds like Lennon, and McCartney sounds like McCartney, and Harrison writes these songs just like this, where you have the Savoy Truffle. It sounds how can I say this? Like Old Brown Shoe is kind of like an. I think Old Brown Shoe kind of sounds similar to Savoy Truffle. I could be that could be blasphemy. It could be wrong, but that's what it sounds like to me. And but they're very like very Harrison sounding songs. Um, but I always forget about this track. I do
Yeah.
always forget about it, and it's like that. Everybody's got something to hide except for me and my monkey. Savoy Truffle gets lost in that mix for me sometimes, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a good song.
Yeah, I mean that's what yeah, that was pretty much my takeaway. It's just it's not something I never think, oh, I really need to listen to Savoy Truffle, but I'm really glad I did when like listening through when it jumped out at me. I feel like um it's got some great sections. There's a lot of depth in the kind of melody lines. There's also they I don't know, they play around with it a lot. And yeah, very cool track, very rocky track. Um, but with enough depth there, I think. I mean, they also reference Obla Di Obla Da in it. We all know Obla Di Obla Da, but can you show me where you are? And maybe to me, I'm thinking maybe George Harrison is like, yeah, we know that shit song, but can you show me a bit of Savoy Truffle? And so maybe that's partly what I like about it.
Oh, I like that. I
Yeah.
like that. That's really cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was just going to mention about the mention. It's so funny, like how the Beatles were so big. Can you imagine being such a big band that like they're just, or it could be like an egotistical thing, but they just reference their lore in their songs
Yeah.
as if they're like scriptures, like they're referencing them. They reference themselves, and it's so funny, but it's epic. It's so epic, man. Like
Yeah. I think
clearly
those
they're
reference
playing.
Yeah, well,
Go
yeah, I
ahead.
think those references work because there's several Beatles. So, like, somebody's writing a song, and then someone else is going to go, you know what? I'm going to talk about your song, and it's almost like he's speaking back to the other song, but this time from George Harrison's voice. So, like, I like to imagine this. It's like a conversation within the album when they kind of each input songs through, almost like referring to each other.
That his drop of Obladi Oblada almost sounds a little mean, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it does. I think George Harrison is in my camp, and he doesn't have much. He doesn't care for it.
You have fun. I'll have a good time with Ringo and Paul. They're
Yeah.
nice guys.
I mean, George Harrison is also notoriously quite sometimes known as somewhat of an angry figure, and I think that might have been true later in his life as well when he kind of got into filmmaking and he'd often like punch people on set. So I think there's definitely that kind of almost venomousness perhaps to him, and I can imagine Paul McCartney sometimes. You watch him, he's got everything, he's all talented, and all the girls love him. There's probably something builds up there where you're going, "Well, you know what, Paul? Obla Di Obla Da sucks, all right? You're not perfect. You're close, but you're not."
It's Paul, I've been really wanting to tell you this for a while now. Like, and I'm not trying to be mean here, man, but like, Obla Dioblada sucks.
Yeah.
Okay, Paul. Like, I've been holding this one in for a while. Like, I can't imagine being Paul in that scenario, and like they're recording it and like he drops it in there and he's like, "Hey man, did you reference my song?"
Yeah.
And he's like,
What's did
"Yeah."
you said you liked it? Yeah, yeah. I don't. I didn't know how else to tell you. I thought I'd do it on the album. That's just the sort of man that I am.
God, it's so weird. It's so weird like how they did that. Like they all were referencing them. They were man, like days of the hour, like through the hourglass. Like it was a very like soap opera within itself of the Beatles' life.
Yeah, I mean, you also got to imagine they've been together so much. They've been touring, and especially those old recording sessions. You had to do things in single takes, and it must have taken it must have been so much work recording an album, so much more work than it is now. And I think that being in that environment with just the same three other guys for such a long time, you must kind of, think fraction, the fractures, I reckon, start to appear. And I think that's when, maybe they start going at each other a bit.
Right. Yeah, tensions were high during this time too, with the recording the White Album, and like I said, this was the intro to um, John and Yoko.
Yeah.
I think I read like there was like moments in the production of the White Album where Yoko would be sitting on Paul's amp while they were recording. He's like, hey, can you get off my amp?
Do you think that's a power play, or did she not know where to sit? Or I mean, there must have been seating available, and she was like, "No, I think I'll sit on Paul McCartney's amp." Show him who's.
I when I read that story, I didn't think that, but like you immediately saw that as a power play, and like that's got to be what it was, right? I mean, like, can you imagine being like the new love of the biggest rock band, and you have carte blanche of like the studio because John is obsessed with you, and I'm gonna sit on this guy's amp.
Yeah,
This guy that my boyfriend talks about all the time. Um,
maybe she's
yeah. So
jealous.
back
Maybe she
to
was jealous. I think. Maybe I think that some of that must have come into it. She's like, "Oh, John loves Paul. I want to show him that Paul's not that great."
yes, I like that take too. There's probably some truth in there as well. But Savoy Truffle, love it.
Yeah.
Love Savoy Truffle. Love it. It's a Harrison track. Really cool.
Really, really cool. Yeah, definite double thumbs up. A plus plus for me. I really like that one, and it was another one that, yeah, that I was really pleased to come across and really surprised me. The next one I really like as well. It's Cry Baby Cry.
Yeah. Cry, baby, cry.
Yeah.
Make your mother sigh. Love it. I love. Well, go for it. It's John singing this song.
Yeah. Yeah, and it has that kind of, I don't know, it feels like quite a reflective song. I don't know. I like the use of space where it kind of cuts away and you just have the piano descending until it gets into they have the kind of short verse sections and then they come back into the Cry Baby Cry. Great piano work in it. Good drums in it too. Like yeah, also another underrated song, I think.
Yeah, I love the lyrics of this song. I love Lennon's delivery. I love the whole song and the chord structure in it. Um, it's really cool, but I think that there's something even cooler about this song is the way it ends with
Yeah.
the that's what I love. Paul McCartney's Can You Take Me Back? The boom, 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 boom. Can you take me back where I came from? Brother, can you take me back? I love that like ending, that outro. It's such a trippy, um, like a trippy song. It's what do you think of that little like that outro for Cry Baby Cry?
I love a different outro. I think it's that last minute curveball when you think the song's over and they just kind of they take you
It
someplace
just keeps
else.
going. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the whole. I think "Cry Baby Cry" in itself, though, like just without the coda, without the Paul McCartney bit, is a well like it's a solid Lennon song. It's weird because like a lot of Lennon's solo stuff, he didn't. I don't know. I found that he didn't like write a lot of like stuff like he was doing in the Beatles. Obviously, they were trying to explore and move into different. He was trying to explore, move in different areas. Um, this is a quintessential like Lennon song for me. I don't really have anything else to say
Yeah, no,
about this song.
yeah, no, it is a really good song. And I agree with you. It is a quintessential Lennon song. To a certain extent, really, Lennon's post Beatles music, I feel like they missed that Paul outro. I would like to have seen, what Lennon's music would have been if Paul had helped him and had an input. I still want it to be. I mean, I mean, he's written some great. He wrote a few, I guess, great songs afterwards. But I think with a bit of that Lennon influence, McCartney influence, I think they could have been a bit better. And I think this song highlights that really, that with a bit of Paul in Lennon's life, his music's a little bit better.
Lennon's music is better. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I think with that, I mean, I think that outro, I think really adds to it, and I think that if you look at Lennon's post Beatles music, I think they're missing that, that Paul element.
Okay, I got you. I see what you're saying. It was they're really good together.
Yeah,
I
not the
they
most
balance each other out.
yeah, not the most genius statement to make that Lennon and McCartney are better together. But like, I wonder if that's a hot take. Has anyone thought of that before? But
That's a hot take. Grab breaking news.
yeah, I wonder if there are fans of individually Lennon and McCartney that feel the other one made the other one worse. I don't know. I wonder if there's anyone like that. I mean, I'm sure there are like diehard McCartney or diehard Lennon fans that prefer their solo work to the Beatles work. I mean, I don't know who those people are, but I mean, I'm sure there are. But I'd be interesting to hear their justification on why they preferred them without the other.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Love it. Cry Baby Cry. Love the outro of Can You Take Me Back? It was like an untitled song, but that's what it became is Can You Take Me Back? Um, really fun song. I love playing it on guitar. Lennon. Trying to think what else about it. Really cool song.
Yeah, also don't have much to say, but yeah, it's good, real good. The next song, I'm not. I mean, I feel like there's simultaneously a lot to say about this one, and also not that much. It's the very infamous Revolution 9.
Oh, I have. So I here's the deal. I knew that we were doing this today, and whether I wanted. Whether so Revolution Number Nine is an experimental track. People recognize it from the number nine, number nine.
Um,
You know,
yeah.
and I was like, I couldn't wait to tell you this because I was like, you know what this feels like, because I listened to it twice, right? Today, I
Okay.
listened to it twice, and I would advise not to do that, but like I listened to it twice, and then I went on a deep dive with it, and I learned some stuff about it. That it was real avant-garde kind of experimental thing that they did, and
Was it?
Lennon says, yeah, and Lennon goes, yeah, I'd imagine this is what it would sound like. This is what the revolution would sound like. You have the piano track, you have some murmurs in the background. Um, there's what sounds like some movies going on. You know what? Ultimately, what it sounds like to me is Revolution Number Nine sounds like I'm in the Overlook Hotel in Stephen King's The Shining.
Okay.
That's what
Yeah.
it sounds. That's what it reminded me of. I was listening to it and I was like, you know what? This is like The Shining. Like I feel like, or some sort of like David Lynch kind of movie. Like I felt like that's what it feels
Yeah.
like when I'm listening to Revolution Number Nine. I feel like it's some sort of kind of David Lynch or Stephen King, The Shining moment.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I can imagine that, I feel like if in that the like the red curtains room in Twin Peaks, I imagine this is the music they'd listen to. If you went into that, the that kind of alternate dimensional room in Twin Peaks. This is
Yes.
like the sort of stuff you'll be like, whoa, 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 there's a jukebox and there's nothing but Revolution 9 on the jukebox. That's what I'd imagine. At the very beginning of it, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure I hear someone call someone else a bitch. I don't think it's true, but like I kept listening to it, and I'm pretty sure, like there's a little talking at the beginning where they're just talking probably about recording the music, but it just sounds like someone's like, "All right then, bitch." I don't know if that's real or not. That could just be in my own
I,
head.
I
But I kept listening for it.
don't I don't think I've heard that before. I know that Revolution Number Nine is the famous track to when you hear it backwards, you're supposed to hear "Turn Me On, Dead Man," right?
Okay.
Um, and then you're supposed to hear like a car crash, and I think this is this. There was like a rumor that, or like some sort of like urban legend where the car crash you heard was where Paul died in it. Paul died, and then I haven't gone down that rabbit hole because I don't really give like some of those like urban legends and some of those that whole Paul is dead thing. Like I don't give it a lot of credence, and
No,
then I don't ever really pay attention to that side. Which, being a big Beatles fan, I should go down that rabbit hole. You know, I really should. But some of it gets really wacky.
I think that's just, I mean, I like that they made something that was so weird, people tried to find meaning in it. But I have a feeling that, I've done this where I've just played around with music and I've gone like, why don't I just like fake hidden messages or pretend there's some kind of grand illusion, and people will do the rest of the work for you. You don't even have to put that much effort into it. I think they were playing around, and I think anyone drawing conspiracies into it. I think you're doing perhaps what they intended, which is let's just make something really weird and see what they did. But interestingly, it's Helter Skelter, the well-formed heavy rock song that inspires the cult, not Revolution 9.
Right. Yeah. You think that Revolution Number Nine is going to be that song that would be, but no, it's Helter Skelter. What I don't like, I mean, well, I don't know if I love this song at all. I mean, it's like I said, I listened to it twice today, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I'll be doing that anytime
Yeah.
soon again.
I mean, it's 8 minutes and
Um,
22 seconds as well. I mean, it's a long time to, if you think about the length of each disc, 8 minutes and 22 seconds is more than enough room for another two or three tracks.
that's
So, kind of, it's
that's
taking the
right.
place of potentially tracks 14, 15, and maybe even 16. So, on
It's a
that
lot of,
grounds,
yeah.
it's hard to justify.
It's a lot of real estate on that album, man. That's a lot of space to be taken up for 8 minutes
Yeah.
of this, you know. Um, and you would think, I think what they could have, so stop me if you think like I'm wrong here, or if you have an opinion on it. But what I think they should have done with Revolution Number Nine is they should have like, look at me. See, I could be a Rick Rubin, right? Check
Yeah.
this out. So I think what they should have done was they should have cut Revolution Number Nine into pieces and uh, put them between every track, so that way you do have this kind of bridge that will make it some sort of concept album. They could have turned the White Album into a concept album, right? By
Yeah.
connecting every song, and you have more than enough of Revolution Number Nine to connect every song. So, going from Birthday, to what was after Birthday on the disc two.
Yeah, blues.
Okay, so like going from Birthday to Your Blues, you have a little bit of Revolution Number Nine, then you go to the next track, and then you glue them all together with the Revolution Number Nine, and then you still have some real estate on the back end of that album. Um, a lot, and that's not new. Like a lot of concept albums do that, where like they have this thematic kind of like Radiohead's done it, where you have like these like little pieces of music that glue and they go throughout the entire album.
Yeah, that is a good idea. Well, where were you? Where were you, Jogs? Why weren't you there? Sorting this out for
Uh,
them.
I was in the ether, man. I
Yeah.
wasn't in this world at that
You
time.
were just part of John Lennon's imagination at that point before he birthed you into existence. That's
Yeah.
where I imagine we're all from in somewhere down the line. We're all just figments of John Lennon's imagination. Yeah, I mean, that is a good idea. That would have been a definite, I mean, that would have made it feel that there was a more of a purpose to it. I mean, interestingly, there's Revolution 1 and then there's Revolution 9. Maybe in some ways, this is like the Revolution 1 is talking about starting it, whereas Revolution 9 is kind of how he thinks it'll play out. I want to know where's Revolutions 2 to 8?
That's what I was just gonna say. I was like, listen, Paul. Yes, Jonks baby, Southern California. Thanks for taking my question, Paul. Where is Revolution Number 2 through 8?
I think they give you some kind of like it's in your mind, or they probably tell you like to listen to the album again, and that it's hidden somewhere in Honey Pie, perhaps. I don't know.
It's like, don't give me that question, Paul. You know that's bullshit. You
Yeah,
know, but it's like I said, this song, the Revolution Number Nine, 8 minutes, just
yeah,
prime real estate in a already great album. Like this is the part where like the Beatles are they're having fun. They're like, and I wonder like who had most of the input on Revolution Number Nine. I didn't get that far into the research. I should. Shame on me, but I don't know who had the most input. I'd like to see who was on that control booth and mixing board and making the shots on, calling the shots on what piece of noise they wanted to put on there.
yeah. I wonder if they just, yeah. I'm not. Was it someone's brainchild, or did they just go through just random sound clips they have and just go, yeah, that's going to be a song. I mean, what I will say for it is almost because it's so strange and it had this kind of infamousness to it. Maybe it did help the kind of push this idea that the White Album is an experience that you have to experience, that almost people are going to maybe help hype the album a bit. They're going, well, they try all sorts on this album. I mean, it gets as weird as Revolution 9. You got to hear, I mean, you got to imagine, this is the Beatles at the time. You're going, wow, I wonder what they're going to do next. And then you're going, wow, they do something so strange that to a certain extent, you got to go, well, I've got to listen to this one. Apparently they go really off the wall. So maybe it serves a purpose in that way. I'm trying really hard to find a justification for it, and I don't
It's
think there is
okay,
one.
man. It's
Yeah,
okay though. Um, I try to listen to. I don't think a lot of people have a lot of input on it. Like I've listened to like a lot of like people's opinions on it. I watched some YouTube videos on it, and ultimately, like there wasn't a lot on it. Just it's a sound. It's categorized as like this like sound collage. That's what it is. It's a sound collage, right?
yeah,
And but I thought it'd be interesting to tell you that like what it invoked a lot of like horror themes in me, like with the Shining, with the Overlook Hotel, and like the trippiness of like the Overlook Hotel and the being haunted, or like a David Lynch kind of like you don't know what's going on, and that's something that David Lynch is really good at. Like movies like Lost Highway or um, what's another David, like Twin Peaks, right? You
yeah.
said you said it earlier, like a Twin Peaks kind of
I love that show.
musical.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very glad that the album didn't end on that song, because I feel like it would have been a bit of a weird shame, and also a really weird and creepy place to leave everyone. I mean, if you put the album on, you kind of fall asleep and you wake up and Revolution 9's playing, like I don't know what reality I've woken up in. And I'm so glad that they end the album on track 13, Good Night, which is honestly, I think, is one of my top 10 Beatles songs ever. I love this song as well. I think it's beautiful. It invokes everything Disney and happy and round and warm. And I've got so much time for it.
Yeah, this song is it was written by John Lennon, sung by Ringo. It's this is I This song is like George Martin's like wet dream. I mean,
Yeah.
like this is strings all over the arrangement, written by the lyrics written by John. This song is so sweet and so beautiful, and Ringo's delivery is like butter on this. He
Mm.
really shines on this. This might be one of my favorite Ringo songs. If this might be the favorite Ringo song, man. This is it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I
there's not
mean,
there's not a lot of
Ringo's song.
competition, is there? I mean, no disrespect to Ringo, but like, what else is up there? But
Well, Octopus's
oh
Garden,
God, I hate that
Don't
song.
Pass Me By.
Nah.
I like Octopus's Garden.
Oh, that's one of that I never have time for Octopus's Garden. I don't know what it is. But I mean, I agree that sometimes maybe the simplicity of Ringo lends itself better for this, for a song like this, and that there's almost an innocent quality to his voice. He's not the kind of, there's no edge at all, and that's what makes it so soothing. And I think this is his time to shine, and I think he dazzles.
I So on the Smashing Pumpkins Melancholy double album, they close the album on their second disc because it's the Twilight to Starlight second album, and they close it with a song called Farewell and Good Night. And I always thought that that was very reminiscent of the Beatles because here we have two double albums, two band, and I really I wish one day maybe we can do a melancholy talk, but I don't. The Pumpkins do that song Farewell and Good Night, and I was like, oh, that's like very like Beatles, like that's very
Mm.
like what we're talking about here with this track, like almost very similar, man. Closing it out, and then they're closing out this White Album. They're closing it out right, and it's like, oh, all right, good night. Like we had a good show, we had a good run. We entertained you. We gave you Helter Skelter. We gave you a show with Honey Pie. We sang you Happy Birthday.
We freaked you
And
out.
we freaked you out a little bit here. We wanted to keep you on your toes, and
Yeah,
go to it's time, now. It's time to go. It's time to turn it off. Time to go to sleep. Close your eyes. And Ringo is such a sweet guy, and you can hear that in his delivery on this song. You know, I, I don't know if it is, but this probably is like on some sort of like Beatles baby mix. It's got to be right, like where they do those Beatles mixes for specifically for babies. It's just the way it is already is a great sleepy time song.
oh yeah, if I'm gonna, this is definitely, if I have a playlist to send me to sleep, this has got to be one of them. And yeah, like you said, I guess the thing is with a double album, it's such a long experience that if you've made it all the way to this end, they have to kind of soothe you and calm you down. And that's why I'm so glad that they chose to have this song at the end, and they didn't just have like Revolution 10 and it's even worse than 9, leave you with nothing but bad vibes. I feel like I'm very glad they rounded off. Yeah, I really get a sense of early Disney from this track. A really sense of, I don't know, like I don't know, the kind of like maybe some like the Bambi music. I you know,
Mm.
it definitely evokes that kind of 50s 40s Disney that I love, that I love that sound so much.
I would be interested in like seeing it for like man, can you imagine if like John sang it or like Paul sang it?
Yeah. Good
Um
night. I feel like if Paul sang it, there would definitely be a real jive to it, and it would be a bit of a happening song, I think. Perhaps. I don't know. Maybe he would also turn it down.
no,
I think the John Lennon one would, there'd be like some reference to some kind of cryptic sound that gives you a nightmare when it's over.
now it's time to say good night. Good night, sleep tight. Now the sun turns out his light. Good night, sleep tight. Dreams, sweet dreams for me. Dreams, sweet dreams for you. These lyrics are sweet, man. Close your eyes, and I'll close mine. Good night, sleep tight.
Yeah.
So, it's just closing up the album. Little bow right there, little pillow there for you. You know,
Yeah.
you've brushed your teeth. Time to go to bed.
Yeah, it's interesting that it mentions the sun again. I mean, the Beatles love the sun. It's a obviously it's a theme that comes up a lot, and it's something I said about "Dear Prudence" being the kind of that I kind of see in some ways as the start of the album, in that that song to me feels like the sun rising. So "Good Night" is really about the sun kind of setting and it being the end of the day. So I kind of I like that kind of continuity that could be drawn, that you kind of wake up and you kind of go on this journey, and then it rounds off to a close.
I love that. I love bands that do that, where they have themes that come out throughout their career. A lot of bands will have that, and if it's so cool to reference back, and because it's cool for a fan, right? Like it's like as a fan, we love that like you're like, man, like I love that you just said it, like you love that they reference the sun all the time, and it's the sun's is a big theme. They love to write about it, you
Mm.
know. I'll follow the Sun King, right?
Yeah,
He
Here
talks
Comes
about
the
it in
Sun.
Here Comes the Sun, Dear
All
Prudence, he
happy
says,
songs.
all good stuff, but it seems to be a theme for the Beatles.
Yeah, the Beatles love the sun, or maybe they're in some ways cosmically tied to the sun. Maybe, maybe there's something. I don't know. I'm not sure how many of these wacky of parallels I can draw anymore. But
Wait a minute, were the Beatles some sun worshipping group of pagans here? Is that what they were?
maybe. I
Like
mean,
this?
there's huge, historical parallels between religion and the sun, and the importance of the sun. Maybe, maybe they're some kind of sun cult. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's pagan festivals, and I don't know, something else. Maybe there's some human sacrifice. Who knows?
Oh man, we got to dive into that. Let's let's do that. All right, man, we did it.
We
Can we get some
completed.
clapping?
Yeah, for sure. We can get some clapping. We made it all the way to the end.
Yay!
And
We did it, man.
yeah, there's so much
Well,
there.
okay, there's so much there. Okay, Guitar Man, favorite track, not track.
Re-listening to it again reminded me of one of the stuff. I think I'm gonna stake out. If I listen to one track again, I'm probably listening to Outer Scale.
All right, I'm gonna stick with Martha, My Dear, my favorite track, my favorite one. I love it. And then a close second would be probably Honey Pie.
Okay, my second is probably still Happiness is a Warm Gun, but Blackbird's so close behind it. Yeah, interesting. We've picked very different songs. Can we agree, like, between us? What do we have? Let's give a top five and see if there's any crossovers. So if I'm going
Okay.
Helter Skelter 1, Happiness 2, Blackbird 3, and then I'm gonna say 4, Savoy Truffle, and then I think 5, I'm gonna say Goodbye. Although Julia is biting at my ankles there.
Oh, good night. Julia. Yeah, I think that's where if you had Julia in your mix, that Julia was where we would cross paths, and I would say it would be, hey man, hey, I like the song too, buddy. Julia is great. I love that
Yeah.
track.
Yeah. So, and I guess the argument, seeing that as though we split them into two, and they are split into two, disc 2 versus disc 1.
Disc 2.
It's disc 2 for me as well. It's so, and I didn't think I would say that, because you look at disc 1 and you look at the great songs on it and you think, how could this be surpassed? But just the quality is so much higher on disc 2. There's way, I mean, with the exception of maybe 2 songs, there's nothing wrong with it.
I think they just really alienated us with Wild Honey Pie. That's what it is.
Yeah, and but Bungalow Bill.
And
There's 2 things that I've got issues with, and maybe I can't look, but also the second side, to also benefits from there being 4 less songs. So 4 of those songs could have been, maybe they did have other terrible songs, and maybe Revolution 9 is doing us a favor and going, listen, this is going to be weird, you're not going to like it. But there was a lot of other really terrible songs that was going to come on here, and I've kind of taken all of their space. So, I'm doing you a favor.
Maybe Revolution number 9 was supposed to like kind of harken that breakdown in A Day in the Life. That noise section in A Day in the Life sounds very similar to that Revolution number 9.
Yeah, they love that kind of like blaring horn things coming in and out. They use that a lot. I don't know whose idea that is, but yeah, whoever it is, yeah, they seem to get it in. But yeah, thanks very much for coming on this journey with me. And I mean, it was I mean, this is one of your. Is this one of your top 3 favorite albums, or is it number 1? I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah. This is it, man. This is it. Top 3 albums of all time. The Desert Island album.
Yeah, I mean, I
Oh,
honestly didn't think I'd say that, but I think I probably agree with you. I've loved listening to this and hated it at times, but mostly loved.
do we want to take a question at all, or I think someone was raising their hand.
Yeah, sorry, I really lapse out in these talks. Expression Alarmed Expression Alarm 675. I can't even read anymore. That's what the power of the Beatles have done for me. They've I'll go through some of the comments as well, for all the wonderful people that have come with us. What do you think they should have put in its place? I'm assuming this is in relation to say to Revolution. I don't know, more support truck. I'm saying, I think, or more helter skeltery stuff for me. Fabian says it's true. They do say bitch. I knew someone was saying bitch. I mean, there's at least 2 people that think that at the beginning of Revolution 9, he calls him a bitch. I don't know. I don't know what the context is there, but I don't know. That's at least one person who supports my theory there. Greg's 2421 says they don't like 9 because it creeps the hell out of them. Yeah, I mean, and Revolution 9 is the most uncomfortable mismatch of sounds I've ever heard. Yeah, I don't think that's a controversial opinion at all. It is pretty bad, and it's weird and it's scary. And they also say you may not. Favrion says you may not want to listen to sappy songs, you may not want to listen to overly political songs, but absolutely nobody wants to listen to overly political sappy songs. And yeah, that's very true. And Greg's 2421 says we should start a podcast. I mean, we kind of just have done a podcast to an extent. I mean, this is a first for me doing a talk, which is just, one other person deep diving something, and I had a good time.
I had a great time.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm thinking is, what other albums deserve this level of scrutiny? Or I'd like something else with the same variety, but I don't know how many other albums there are with that. But I definitely think maybe Dark Side probably deserves this level of deep dive to it. I don't know. I'm sure there are others.
Yeah, maybe we can ask somebody or people like what they.
We could do a poll.
Yeah, do a poll.
Yeah, I mean, Paranoid Android also might be an interesting. OK Computer might be an interesting one.
Computer? Yeah, for sure. I would love to do that.
Yeah. Other than that, thank you very much for coming. You can follow the group, and there'll be more talks, I imagine, of all kinds, and hopefully more deep dives and more music. And yeah, I'm just gonna slowly play you out. And I'm going to put a mismatch of weird sounds, because that's how Revolution 9 would have done it. Number 9.